Hey there, Skeleton Key here. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. And you were probably watching this on the replay because I really do not expect there to be anyone here for the live because about half an hour ago I noticed that I had this scheduled for the wrong date. So I fixed that, and so here I am. It is still April 2nd, and I'm, doing this. I'm bringing you my thoughts and rankings on the Octofinals Group C of Nonfiction for the BookTube Prize. And just really quickly, the BookTube Prize is go to the BookTube Prize channel here on YouTube or booktubeprize.org, and you will find all sorts of information on this program. And I forget now how many years Robert has been doing this, but Robert Sheard has been putting together this competition judged by bookish influencers on social media, or people who have channels or blogs or something. I guess it started off with mostly booktubers, but I think it's expanded quite a bit beyond that. So bookstagrammers and probably Fable and who knows what. But it's just a really fascinating time to read books from the previous year and pick a winner in each category. And this year there's a nonfiction category and a fiction category. And let's see, I'll show you the group that I was judging. And here we go. This is Group C. And also known as the Depressing Historical Chonkers group. To be clear, I am not upset about having read any of these books. I'm not mad about that. There was a clear first place spot, book in my group, in my opinion, and there was a clear sixth place, but even the sixth place one it's not a bad book. So I feel like I got really lucky, even though this was a lot of pages. But anyway, and I'll just stop that for now and get right into the rankings. Well, the thoughts. The rankings will gradually go through those. So I'm just going to go through each book and give my thoughts on each book in the order that I finished them. There was some overlap in reading these, but I'll just go with the order in which I finished them. And so we'll start with, I guess I'll put this up. Start with The Showman by Simon Schuster, and the subtitle is Inside the Invasion That Shook the World and Made a Leader of Volodymyr Zelensky by Simon Schuster, narrated by Daniel, I can't read my own handwriting. I think it's Gamberg. Anyway, but if you are watching in person, feel free to say hi. Just thought I should actually say that. So Simon Schuster is a Time magazine correspondent, and he spent a lot of time with Zelensky. And yeah, the narrator did pronounce it, the L is more of a Y sound. Did spend a lot of time with him, both, leading up to his election as president, his campaign, and there's a lot of information about his career in entertainment. And that's why, the title, The Showman. And he talks about that connection a lot. And and also during, the attacks, and during he was with him during, the beginnings of things, during the early days of his election. He did spend a lot of time with him. And this was actually a very emotional read for me, because I was still, I had listened to the audiobook, but then I thought I should really get a copy of the text so that I can look at pictures, because this one, it does have a really nice, full color section, and then there are black and white pictures throughout. I think in this one, wait, no, I guess it's just the color section. And there are maps, and here's the maps of April 1, 2022 and December 1, 2022. But yeah, and all of these books were written before the election last November. So that adds sort of a weird layer of, wow, this is all old news. But this is really more about, it's not trying to be newsy. It's about who Zienski is as a person, and how he rose to the task of leading his country in this war. And but I was, even though I finished listening to the audiobook, I was still flipping through, looking at maps and pictures and everything. And when Zienski was in the Oval Office being harangued for not wearing a suit and not saying thank you enough, which, oh my God, and it's just, and you could just see him, the look on his face as it was clearly not unexpected, but I think the depth of the betrayal was just so clear on his face that he was like, no, we're not. Yeah, this is for nothing. So that was really hard to experience. And, and this book does talk a lot about his previous career in the entertainment industry, and how at first he was actually getting a lot of pushback, even though he was elected president of Ukraine. He was getting a lot of pushback about his hypocrisy. It's like, you said you wouldn't live in the palace, but you're living in the palace, and you were making jokes about all these, people with their marble and gold and all that. And there's more to it than that. It's like, this is the only building that is fortified sufficiently to protect you in certain circumstances. And yeah, so so he had sort of a rocky start to his presidency. It goes through that. It goes I think one thing that kind of bothered me about the book was it did bounce around a lot in time, and listening to the audiobook, that got really confusing, at least to me. And maybe if you're a better student of history than I am, because it does go into a lot of history, even like before the election even, and the president before that, and their relationship with Russia, and also going back into older history about Russia and its attitude towards Ukraine, just taking the Crimea and the Crimean Peninsula, and yeah, it's just And yeah, there was a lot of bad behavior on Rush's part, and so it bounces around a lot in time, which I personally found confusing. Your mileage may vary, um, but it was still a really interesting read, even if I did have to go back and into the text and kind of go, oh, okay, all right, that was that, and then that was that, and kind of figure out everything out. And um, my other thing that would maybe keep this out of the top spot, even though this was the first book I read, so I didn't really know what everything else was going to be like, but kind of figuring that would keep it out of the top spot. And this is just a me thing. There was a lot of discussion of military strategy, which I just, my eyes glaze over and I'm just like, I don't understand what's going on here. You know, I don't know all these terms, and even if I looked them up, they wouldn't stick in my brain. And so I mean, if you want to know about military strategy for this current war, from like 2022 and so forth, this is a great book for you. I certainly did not dislike this book. I got a lot out of it, and a better picture of who Zelensky is as a person and as a leader, and how that developed with his family, and how just how he grew into this role. And uh, so it's, like I said, actually a very emotional read. So I decided with this, let's see, and I have my notes over here, so I'll probably be looking over here a lot. So I decided, well, okay, for my first, where am I going to put this on the 1 to 6 ranking? I said, well, my real question is, how would I feel about this going through to the next round or not going through to the next round? And I put it in the number 3 slot because, yeah, I would be perfectly happy with this going on to the next round. But, also leave room for the fact that, I might move it up or down, but as it stands right now, I really don't think it would be my first choice. And then next, we have The Freaks Came Out to Write by Trisha Romano, and it was narrated, I listened to the audiobook. Johnny Heller and Joanne Perrin were the narrators for this. The subtitle is The Definitive History of the Village Voice, the Radical Paper That Changed American Culture. And okay, so, at first I saw this and I'm like, oh, okay, this is the longest book. It's like about 600 pages, I think just under 600, and that's like counting the index and everything. But I actually like reading through indexes, so yeah, I'm a nerd. I was listening to this and it was like the first like 6% of the book is a cast of characters, which is like this little like one line description of all of these different people, some of whom I was familiar with, like Donald Trump. I obviously know who Donald Trump is, but also lots of people I'd never heard of. So I was listening to it and I'm like, okay. And it's just this list of people with this little one line description. Okay. I'm like, I'm not going to remember this. And I don't have a hard copy. At that point, I did not have the hard copy. not going to have a hard copy to refer back to. So I'm like, all right, so not real thrilled with the format right away. And then it's just basically these two narrators trading off reciting quotes from these various people on various topics. And some of these were really interesting topics. Like, talked about the AIDS crisis, which, in New York, you've got Roy Cohn, and then there's Ronald Reagan involved in that and everything. And just to kind of give you, so this is, the definitive history of the Village Voice, and just to give you an idea of the time frame, it starts with 1955 to 1970 is the first section, and then it goes up to 2000 to 2023 for the final section. And I think that's the point at which it went just online. And quite frankly, I did not look to see if it still exists. I don't know. I kind of don't care. And okay, so I will say this, that I was kind of put off by it being set, like, this is a New York City book. And I'm wanting to say Nora Ephron, whoever wrote the book, I Feel Bad About My Neck. I think it was Nora Ephron. Anyway, she posited that if you're, if you're a New York City person, you're not a DC person. If you're a DC person, you are not a New York City person. Well, I am a DC person. DC feels kind of like a second home to me. I would be very scared to be there right now. And that breaks my heart because I love DC. And so I'm not a New York City person. The closest I've been to New York City is like a 3-hour layover at LaGuardia. And yeah, that's it. And I really don't have any desire to go to New York City. I mean, if somebody gave me an all expenses paid trip to like go see some Broadway shows or something like that, I would make the best of it. I would manage to have fun. But I'm not a New York City person. I'm just not. And so a lot of this stuff was really pretty local and didn't have that grand scope, like, the AIDS crisis and the 9/11. There's reactions to 9/11. And it was really hard to listen to because it was just like, these two narrators going back and forth reading. I mean, they're from interviews, but it's just these quotes that these people, various people, many of whom I had never heard of, were saying about all these things. It's like, liberating the bars. Oh, and yeah, it's got a whole section about the Stonewall riots. And that was interesting. So there was lots of interesting stuff in here, but the presentation really made it hard to listen to. And so I thought, well, let me get a hold of the hard copy. And so I got the hard copy and I was going through, I'm like, no, not helping. This does not help. It's just, I don't know if you can see that. No, not really. But anyway, it's just, it's like a collection of quotes. And yeah, so I was like, okay, well, this may not be the worst thing. So I'll put it in number 5 is where I put it. I do want to, kudos to Trisha Romano. I mean, if you look at the notes and the index and everything, the bibliography, tons of research. If you're interested in the Village Voice, or if you're a New York City person, yeah, I do recommend this book, even if it might be formatting wise a bit of a slog. But I did get a lot out of it, even though I was just like, not real thrilled with the presentation. Okay. So yeah, so at this point we've got The Showman up here at number 3, and we've got The Freaks Came Out to Write at number 5. Oh, I hope my voice gets through this. 4 to go. All right. Next was Q the Sun. So, okay, I was hooked as soon as I saw the title because I recognized that. That's a quote from The Truman Show. And yeah, I really appreciated that movie. But anyway, this is The Invention of Reality TV. This is by Emily Nussbaum, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And yeah, so, okay, you might think reality TV really, this is a prize-worthy subject. Yeah, it is actually. The writing here was really great. This is Pulitzer kind of writing. This is the style of writing and the quality of writing that I would expect from a Pulitzer winner. And and see, I don't actually watch much in the way of reality TV, at least nowadays. But yeah, this goes way back. This goes back before TV. This goes back to Alan Funt and Candid Camera, no, Candid Microphone, because it was on radio. And it goes back to Queen for a Day, which I had heard of, but I didn't realize how strange of a concept it was. It's basically these poor women in dire circumstances giving their sob stories and trying to be adjudicated the most worthy of prizes that may or may not actually help their situation because they had to please the sponsors. So it goes all the way back to that. But it also, it goes all through that and Candid Camera and then some of the game shows and it goes all the way through, but it does such Nussbaum did such a great job of putting everything in sort of a societal context and what this meant in the grand scheme of things and what it meant about where we were as a society, I guess. I was really, really impressed with this. And it goes all the way, I forget how recently, but yeah, it talks so much about things that I remember, and like Real People. That was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, was Real People, and it talks about real people. And also with some of the shows like the Newlywed Game, and talks about some of the behind the scenes stuff and what was going on in what was it, Bob Eubanks in his life and his marriage falling apart, and yet he's hosting the Newlywed Show, and it goes through all of these things here. And this was just I kind of zipped through this because it was just so fascinating. And I really liked her writing style, and also my name is actually in the index. If you, some of you who know what names I write under, you'll probably figure it out. But It's not me. It's just not talking about me. It's just talking about somebody else. But we have the same name, which is why yeah. Yeah, and I have several pen names, so that's why as here it's just I'm Skeleton Key. It's just easier to remember. So this, let's see. So I decided, okay, so maybe this isn't the most, or, I was looking at the other topics and thought, okay, maybe this isn't the most earth-shattering work that could be there. But so I'll put it as number 2 because I like this the best of all the 3 that I've read so far. So that means it looks like this now. With Q the Sun in the number 2 spot. Okay. And this is the next biggest book, I think, on the whole list. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a chunker. This is Everyone Who Is Gone Is Here by Jonathan Blitzer. Subtitle, The United States, Central America, and the Making of a Crisis. It's like, oh, this sounds like fun. No, it's not fun. Yeah, this one blew me away. I was like, it's about how we got where we are with immigration and our policy, our foreign policy, just immigration policy. It's and this was, of course, written before the election and before the current shit show that we have now. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is hard to talk about because of what things are like now. It's like I almost wish I could just ask Jonathan Blitzer. It's like, okay, now what? Now what? Are you writing a book about this now? It does an amazing job of making this. I mean, this could be super dry. This could be really boring. But he presents policy decisions and history and kind of anchors everything around these personal stories of real people going through real hell, and pulls everything together so beautifully. It's easy to follow, even though it jumps around a lot. You can still what's going on. And I'm gonna start crying because yeah, because yeah, we know how bad it is right now. And it's just this was it's always been bad. It's just we are taking it to another level. And so sorry. Anyway, like I said, this blew me away. This was an instant number 1. Yeah, I was like, I don't think anything can beat this. I was just amazed at how yeah, how well written this was, how everything was presented so wonderfully. Okay. So now this is what my stack looks like. Oh, is it gonna show up? There we go. So there we go. All right. All right. Composure. Yeah. So my penultimate book The Age of Deer, Trouble and Kinship with Our Wild Neighbors. And this is by Erica Hausar. Hauser? I should have looked up how to. I did not have an audiobook of this one, so I don't know how to say her name. And I should have looked that up. That's on me. Sorry. But this is about, the history and to some extent the future of the very intertwined relationship between humans and deer and deer kind. There's a technical term, she says it in there, and I've forgotten it. It's already left my brain. This may not be as important in the grand scheme of things as, the immigration issues that we have facing us, or, the freedom of the press and the importance of reporting on what's going on in the world and wars, and that are really the bellwether of humanity and whether we actually deserve to survive. But anyway, it actually is important to me in sort of an immediate sense, in that, I've grown up with, deer, not so much in my hometown, which is a little odd, come to think of it, because it was a rural town, and not a big, not a big town. Whereas I actually encountered more deer when I lived in, and currently live in, cities. So not Denver, but Fort Collins. Yeah, there's a road that I take a lot that, yeah, I have to watch out for deer, even though it's all in the city, and it's all built up, and yeah, and wild turkeys too. It's like I was, driving through sort of an industrial section of town, and there's like this big old wild turkey on the corner, and I'm like, okay. We see deer. Every once in a while we have a moose jam or an elk jam. And I joke that and I'm not really joking because I know me, but I joke that now that I live in mountain lion country, my last words are going to be, "Ooh, pretty kitty." And that's, yeah, I can see that. But yeah, we have mountain lions, we have bears. There was a bear. They found there was a bear in a tree, just like 100 yards from the office that I worked in, when I was at Colorado State University. I worked in a building that was right on the Oval, which is, this big grassy area with a lot of trees around it, and there was a bear in a tree, and I'm like, all right. One of the houses that we looked at, a few houses down, right, not long after we bought this house, yeah, there was a mountain lion in the tree. Okay. So it's, so it's not just deer, for me anyway, but the deer population, we had. I come from a family where, in rural Missouri, both of my parents hunted, and they hunted deer, and they, so it is a kind of a complex relationship because, it'd be like they're eating our corn. They're eating our gardens. They're eating our crops. But then when you harvest one, you get corn-fed deer. So it's just been I don't know. So this interested me on a personal level, and I just really enjoyed Erica Hauser's writing. It's very poetic, and that appeals to me. I can also see a lot of people that really bouncing off of that, and you know, different things for different people, different books, different tastes. That's fine. But I decided I decided that, when I was looking at my stack, I decided that, I don't know, even though the showman, with the war on Ukraine, the attacks on Ukraine is pretty objectively a more important subject. I liked reading this book better. Um, so I put it in the number 3 slot. And I bumped the Zansky book down to, oh gosh, is this gonna work? I'm sorry, my shoulders will not let me raise this higher. Sorry. But I bumped the Showman down to number 4. But we'll see. And then my final read is When the Clock Broke by John Gans. Subtitle is Conmen, Conspiracists, and How America Cracked Up in the Early 1990s. So, much like how Everyone Who Has Gone Is Here is about how we got to where we are with immigration. And yeah, it's, spoiler alert, it's Reagan's fault by and large. This is how we got where we are with our economic policies. And spoiler alert, it's Reagan's fault. Not just Reagan's fault, but wow, everything that is bad in our world can pretty much be traced back to Ronald Reagan. And this is a slimmer volume, and it's a different kind of writing style. So you're just going to have to read it for yourself and see what you think of the writing style. At first, I liked it, but then it just kind of got a little stale, I guess. I don't know how to put it exactly, but the shiny wore off for me, I guess. And another thing, whereas with Everyone Who Has Gone Is Here, that one, it went back into like the 60s and 70s and early 80s when I was a kid and I didn't know. And, I might hear snippets on the news, or, something might come up in social studies class about something. But I had no grasp on the intricacies of what was going on or why. Yeah, and while I was reading that, I was just like, why do people have to be like this? Why can't we all just get along? I still don't understand why that is not a valid question. Why can't we all just get along? And so while that book really went in depth and explained all of these things that I kind of knew about at the very edges of my memory, it just really brought everything into focus, and how it all came together, and how it got us where we are. This while it did go into some good depth on a lot of things. All right, so it basically, starts with the early 1990s, leading up to the 1990s. So it does deal with some stuff in the 80s, but it was mostly stuff that was at a time where I was old enough to really get a good handle on a lot of the things going on in the world. And I was actually actively participating in discussions, pretty high level discussions about some of these things. Like I remember in, was it 87, I actually went, and this was my first trip to DC, and it's when I fell in love with DC. Went to a seminar, a week-long seminar on terrorism. And that was, 1987. And, we visited a bunch of embassies, including a bunch of them discussed here. The countries discussed here, and in Everyone Who Has Gone Is Here. We visited the State Department. We got into some really in-depth discussions about, we visited Senator Danforth. We visited a lot of things. And, we also did some cultural activities, went to a play at the National Theater, and, did some really, some fun, cool stuff and seeing the sights. But the bulk of it was really digging into a lot of these issues. A lot of terrorism is, really tied to our economic policy. And so there's so much in this that it's like, yeah, I knew that. And it's, I'm not saying this is a bad book by any means. This is great. And yeah, I was really pleased to have all of this stuff kind of brought together. And, sort of what exactly happened and how it intertwines. But yeah, it was mostly stuff, and I did learn some things, but it was mostly stuff I was already familiar with. So when, it was really hard to figure out where to place this because it's not a bad book at all. But when it came right down to it, I actually really got a lot more out of the top 4 books. So I put it in the number 5 slot, and I bumped down the Village Voice book to the number 6 slot. So like I said, and I'm gonna, let's see if I can turn off that. Let's see. My shoulders are not great. My spine is crap, but let's see if I can actually lift these without having a major incident. There we go. Yeah, almost. Anyway, that is my ranking and my thoughts behind it. So anyway, I am not judging the next round. I might volunteer for if Robert is really in need of, because he said he might be really in need of a backup for nonfiction. I might volunteer for that to step in, but I pretty much plan to take a break for the quarterfinals. But if you want to see what made it through, I will say that 2 of my top 3 made it through, and my number 4 pick, The Showman, made it through. So, but anyway, if you want to see nonfiction results and all the fiction results, and then see the quarterfinals pairings or groupings, go check out Robert's channel. And also, I see there have been a few people pop in and out here, and so hi, thank you for stopping by. But yeah, you can hear my voice is going. So I'm just gonna wrap it up here, and thank you so much for being here, and everyone watching on the replay, thank you for checking it out. And I hope you got something out of this. And yeah, feel free to comment and let me know what you thought. And if you also let me know if you are participating this year in judging the BookTube Prize, or if you've read any of these books and you want to share your thoughts on them. I would love to hear from you. Anyway, that's all I have for right now, and hopefully I will be back soon with some of my more regular updates. And I will talk at you later.